So I'm going to use exercise 2 in describing and interrogating data to show you how we use a system of coding to allow you to write code and for it to be checked and tested by our code, which means that you are able to check that you're getting not only the right code but the right answer as well when you write a function. So exercise 2 asked you to take the Titanic database, or to use the Titanic database that it's already got, or the data set, sorry, that it's already got because I've already run it in exercise 1. So the Titanic data frame already exists. I don't need to import pandas. I don't need to read it again. It's already existed because I've run that cell above here. Whenever we give you an exercise, that we're going to give you the testing for as well, we'll give you the header, the function header, so the name of the function and any data that it needs in order to run. And then we will give you a set of code down the bottom, which will actually set up the expected results and then allow those to be compared against the actual results and then tell you whether the test passed or failed. So in this case, we've got a function called getStatistics that's required to be given a data frame. The test code will run the function and get whatever comes back from it. It will give the function the data frame that it wants to work with. So it's giving it a copy of the Titanic data frame so that the function, if it changes the Titanic data frame, it's not going to change the existing one, the main one that you've already got hold of. It's only going to change a copy of it and therefore not affect the main data frame. It runs the function will return a load of data which gets stored in actual. Expected is set up here with a list of all the things that it's expecting to get back, all the values it's expecting to get back, which it's created as a tuple, which means it's in a list in round brackets. It's got all those values in it. If your actual then it is the same as the expected, it'll say test passed, and otherwise it'll say test failed, and show you the difference between the two. So that's quite powerful in terms of how you can test as you go along. So I'm just going to show you how you can start to use this in a kind of meaningful way, but not have to write the whole thing before you can run it. So we're going to add code below here to return the stats that are listed above. So this is fairly straightforward. You've got 8 things to return. When you return the data, you've got 8 things in this list, and these things need to have the values that are in the expected list. So we've got to get them right when we calculate them. So at the moment, this is not the return passengers is commented out. I'm going to put it back in, so I think it was like that originally. What you need to know about a function is that it will always, with a return statement there or not, it will always return none if there's no data to return. So what we can do is we can just put a hash here. And what that will do is that will take all of these variables out so that we can just get it to return none for now. And what will happen here now is that this test should fail because it's expecting to get this list of values and it's getting none. And it's told us that. Expected to get that, but it's got none. So we've got something that we can get started with. So let's now that we've got to that stage, let's think about the passengers. Our first thing that we need to do is to get the total number of passengers on the Titanic. The Titanic data, once it's got to our function, is called df. So we're going to be finding the total number of passengers into the df data frame. So we know from here that we need to call it passengers. And so to calculate it, we're going to say df, and in order to calculate the number of passengers, it's a good idea to just try and count one column, but it needs to be a column that's got everything in it, so that all of the passengers are in that column. We've got, if we go back and look up here, we've got a column called passenger ID, and passenger ID has got all of we can see from here, it's got all of the records in it. So if we count the number in passenger ID, we're going to get the number of passengers. So we isolate that column to start with by using df and then in square brackets and the name of the column. That's just going to get us that column on its own. It's called a series, but it's just given us that one column. And now we've got that column, we can say I want the count, which we just add the dot. That just means run this function count on this data frame, or on this series, this data frame column. That should give us the passengers, and that should work. So I can test this now, just to test that the syntax works. I'm still getting none because I haven't returned passengers. But what I can do now is if I was to take that hash from there and put it after passengers, so that I'm now just returning passengers, I can now test to check that it's getting the right answer. What am I'm getting the wrong answer. So let's just see. But it's got, so because it's only got one answer, it's got a problem because it's expecting a list and it's only got one number, but that's okay for now. So at the moment it's got 891. It got the right number to start with. And let's just do the next one just to check that we're going to get that one as well. So we want the age of the youngest passenger. So to get the age of the youngest passenger, we've got an age column. The youngest passenger will have the minimum number in that column. So we're going to use the minimum function here. So this needs to be called youngest, because that's again what we want to return. The data frame, the column is called age. And this time we want .min because we want the minimum. What we return there. So I'm just going to put passengers back in. I'm going to put youngest in, then I'm going to comment out the rest. So I've now got passengers and youngest. I'm getting two things back. It should like that because it'll get a list, even though it's got two items in it. Now what I can see now is I've got the first two right. And I can continue with that as I go through until I've got it all, and eventually that test will pass.